And that case, how is it right now? What happened with the treasury found in that?
Well, with the Sussex project.
Yeah, Sussex project.
Yeah, with the Sussex project, where it stands right now is we all had an agreement between Andalusia and the national government and Odyssey, and we all agreed that the Andalusian government was going to send along some archaeological experts. And we waited for the archaeological experts to be appointed for almost 2 months. Finally, the national government said, you don't have to wait any further. So we went off and we started working without any archaeologists from Spain. We have our own archaeologists, and we had the British government's archaeologists there. And so about the time that people were getting quite concerned about that, we found the Black Swan site. And then the Black Swan site got everybody excited and interested. So the Black Swan site sort of put the Sussex project on hold for a while.
Okay. So now we go to the Black Swan, which is the complicated case, I think. I would like to know, because I've been taking a look to the court in Tampa, in Florida, and there's the Spanish government claiming part of the treasury, the Peruvian government claiming part of the treasury, and also there's people that declare that they are heirs from the owners of the ship centuries ago, that it's also claiming the treasury. So what's going to happen? How is this case going, and how do you think it's going to be solved?
You know, my grandfather said that when people say it's not about money, it always is.
I'm sure.
we have found, over 1,000 shipwrecks over the years. And it's funny that the ones that you bring up a lot of money from are the ones that everybody suddenly gets interested in, even though it's said it's only about cultural heritage. Our own position is that when we find a shipwreck, we think that everybody that has a legitimate claim should have that claim recognized. In this case, whether it's Peru or the heirs or the Spanish government, if it proves to be the Mercedes, which has not been proven yet, then everybody should have an interest. The way that Admiralty Court works is we are rewarded for the work that we do, for the archaeological work we do, for the conservation work we do, without regard to who the owners are. So we don't really mind that owners come forth. This is a misconception that's been promoted by the media, but we actually seek out individuals and companies and organizations and governments that may have an interest, because we think everybody should be involved in deciding how a shipwreck should be managed.
So what kind of profit do you get as a company for participating in this kind of projects?
Well, when we find it, I'll go back to our original model, as we saw that there had to be some new type of model that would evolve. There has to be a paradigm shift in how we treat underwater cultural heritage, because there's no money for it. There's been news recently of shipwrecks falling apart on land even that aren't being taken care of properly, much less the shipwrecks underwater, which are rotting, being destroyed by trawlers, etc. So we have to come up with a model that works for everybody. Our idea is that there are two different types of artifacts in every shipwreck. There are artifacts that we call trade goods. This includes coins, pottery, things that are characterized by large quantities of mass-produced items. These items were on ship by an accident of fate. They were being carried as cargo. They don't tell you anything about life at sea. They don't tell you anything about how ships were built. They don't tell you anything about the armament. They don't tell you about cultural heritage. They're just coins. So they're interesting, but they don't tell you about maritime archaeology. On the other hand, you have all these artifacts that have to do with the ship itself, with the armament, with the hull. Cultural artifacts, those are important. In our model, we think that you should be able to sell a portion of those duplicate trade goods to pay for good archaeology, so you can keep all the cultural heritage pieces together, conserve them properly, and use them for education.
So what's going to happen? Because I have seen, like, for example, in the claims done by the hairs or one of the hair of the Black Swan. We don't know if it's Nuestra Señora de la Merced. That if the court says that all that money or all that treasury goes to him, you are able like to get a part of it in profits. So you will be able to work something like that with the Spanish government or the Peruvian authorities in case the case is resolved in their benefit?
Well, we've already offered to the Spanish government and discussed with the Peruvian authorities that we think in the case of the Black Swan, if it's the Mercedes, or if it proves to be a Spanish shipwreck, the deal that we would offer is very similar to the deal that we have offered to the British government and the deal we've made on the Sussex. And that is that we think 50% of what we recover should go, we think that the value of 50% of what we recover should go to the government. And we think that the cultural heritage pieces, all those pieces should be kept together as a collection forever. Those should never be sold. So that's part of the deal that we offer to governments, to keep all the cultural heritage pieces together, but to allow the trade goods to be split, to pay, if the government decides to sell them, that's up to the government. But that we should be able to either pay, that we should be able to either use the artifacts that are our share to sell, or if a government wants to keep all the collection together, if they decide that those coins are so culturally significant that those should be kept together, in the model we've presented to Spain and to England and to Peru and other governments, they can keep everything and they just pay us a percentage of the value we return to the country.
And do you think that all these cases related to the Black Swan are maybe making other governments to avoid making deals with you guys?
Well, I think exactly the opposite. In the last several weeks, I've met with several government officials from other governments that realize because of the Black Swan, there's a real problem here. How do we manage our underwater cultural heritage? We don't have the money for it, and they've seen that Odyssey has bent over backwards to try to reach out to make deals with governments. And in this day and age, where the taxpayers are already bearing too much of a burden, where governments are running significantly short on cash, the idea of a way to protect shipwrecks, but still not have to go to government coffers to pay for them, is a pretty attractive thing to governments today.
So I've been looking in, I see that you guys are going to have or are trying to get 13 projects in Mexico. Talking
Right.
about Nuestra Señora do Juncal, now San Antonio, and the SS Golden Gate. How's that project going along?
Well, there's a lot of countries over the world that we have put proposals forth to. And Mexico is one of those. I think it was probably 10 years ago we first put together a proposal, as I just mentioned, that allows all the cultural pieces to stay together in a way to do the underwater cultural heritage management without any bills to the government. That was approved by a number of different ministries. The INA did not approve it. We have gone through a lot of negotiations and through the courts, and that's being worked out right now. The complicated thing, of course, is that Mexico has signed the UNESCO Convention on the Protection of Underwater Cultural Heritage. There are certain Mexican government officials that understand that the proposal that we have made to Mexico actually fits into the UNESCO Convention because all the artifacts do stay together. There are certain officials that just don't want any commercial firm under any circumstances to work in underwater cultural heritage. But what we say to those people is that system isn't working. Shipwrecks are rotting. There's no money in government for archaeology. At least we're presenting an opportunity to do something about the shipwrecks. What is their alternative? They don't have an alternative. Their alternative is to let shipwrecks rot. Who learns anything from that?